Welcome back to watching the world today on Channels Television Now. In other stories, the World Health Organization says the toll in the Ebola epidemic has risen to well over 5,400 deaths out of over 15,000 cases in 8 countries. The WHO also says transmission of the deadly virus is still intense and widespread in Sierra Leone. The figures through November the 16th represent a jump of 243 deaths and 732 cases since those issued last Friday, and the WHO says cases continue to be underreported. Sierra Leone, a former British colony, confirmed 533 cases that are actually new in the week to November the 16th.
There is growing awareness on the need to conduct safe burials for suspected Ebola victims in Sierra Leone.
People are now cooperating compared to before, and they are ready for us to take their dead. At first, I was afraid to do this work, but as I know how to protect myself, I'm no longer frightened to do the work.
Because the Ebola virus is highly infectious and remains active in the corpses of victims, only specialized teams in protective clothing are allowed to remove and dispose of the bodies. Each team has 12 workers, and every member of a team earns about $100 a week. However, the bureaucracy of the safe burial procedure is creating confusion for some.
In other news, despite a ceasefire reached in September, the United Nations says an average of 13 people have been killed daily in eastern Ukraine since then. In the 8 weeks since the shaky truce came into force, the UN says 957 people have been killed amid continuing violations on both sides. The Commissioner's report describes a total breakdown of law and order in rebel-held Donetsk and Luhansk. It also highlights credible allegations of abuses by government forces. Conflict broke out in eastern Ukraine last April when the government in Kiev launched an operation to recapture areas seized by pro-Russian rebels. Now, the WikiLeaks founder is in the news again, and a Swedish appeal court has upheld an arrest warrant for him in connection to a sexual assault case. The Court of Appeal refused the founder's appeal for detention order issued in 2010 to be revoked. He denies the allegations and has sought refuge in the Ecuador embassy in London to avoid extradition. If sent to Sweden, he says he may face charges in the United States over the leaking of secret government documents. Now to the United States. There's chaos in northeastern United States where another 1 meter of snow is expected to hit hard. Already a massive snowstorm left at least 7 people dead in New York on Wednesday, which was yesterday. Weather-related deaths were also reported in New Hampshire and Michigan. Parts of the city of Buffalo are already under 5 feet of snow. The New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo, called the snowstorm a historic event.
Weather forecasters say 3 more feet of snow could fall in parts of Erie County, which includes the city of Buffalo. City officials say that's as much snow as they normally see in an entire year. Driving was banned on many roads, and 140 miles of the New York State Thruway along Lake Erie and Lake Ontario were closed. The storm inundated some areas, with snow falling at a rate of 5 inches per hour, while sprinkling only a few inches just a few miles away.
This is the worst I've seen. It's bad. Not as you go a couple, probably about 10 blocks over, it's a lot worse, but it's pretty bad here as well. We're making the best of it though.
In South Buffalo, snowmobiles are being used to respond to emergency medical calls and rescue stranded motorists, while some 5,000 tons of snow was removed from the area. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a state of emergency for 10 counties, deploying National Guard troops to help residents.
We need the cooperation of residents and citizens who have been great. But when we say stay home, really stay home. Going out on the roads is dangerous. It's unnecessary. You're not going to get anywhere. You will get stuck, and then you will further complicate the situation.
At least 7 deaths were attributed to the storm in the northeast.
I'm now being joined live by the VOA's Phil Alexiou to give us an update on what's happening concerning the snowstorm in the United States. Phil, I hope you can hear and see us. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today. Now, based on can you hear me, Phil?
I'm not sorry, say again?
Yes, I think you can. Can you hear me, Phil? So I was asking that based on the pictures we've seen, the situation is quite extreme. Could you just give us a view of what you're seeing since you're in the middle of the snowstorm, basically?
Well, you know, here in the United States, we've got, what has happened this week is that 43 of the 50 states have had record-breaking temperatures. That's almost the entire country. So when the jet stream came dipping down from the North Pole, it came down so far that it blanketed the entire country, and all 50 states were freezing. Now, you mentioned in your reports about the snowfall that they've had so far, but yet, no question about it now, there's more snow coming in the next day or two. So on top of the 5 feet, we're looking at another 2 feet in parts of Buffalo and other parts of the country. So the danger right now is for emergency crew to be able to get around, which they can't. People who are out are shoveling snow, which you mentioned there's been 7 deaths so far, not used to shoveling snow. We've got people with heart attacks. Emergency crews are not able to get to the places they need to get to, even with people who are suffering from any snow problems.
Now, Phil, the New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo, has described this as a historic event concerning how extreme and how bad the weather is. We'd just like to ask you if you have any information as to why the weather is so intense right now compared to what's happened in the past.
Well, the Great Lakes, for one, creates a lot of moisture. The Great Lakes are a huge body of water and made up of the 5 lakes in the United States. So when the jet stream dips down, you have the cold weather mixing in, and that's why they get a lot of snow up there. This situation has been quite a bit different. It's been very unique. The jet stream has channeled unusually and along the New York path. And Buffalo is in an unusual situation, which has gotten the brunt of this, because they're sandwiched between 2 of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie and Ontario. So they're in an unusual position, and that's why they always get a lot of snow. This situation is an aberration, so you can't really tie it to any one specific thing, but we do know that the air is coming across from Siberia to the North Pole, channeling between Alaska and Canada, and it's just the way that the jet stream is moving. And we can't tie it to climate change or anything like that, since it's an unusual event. Now, if this is something that has been occurring or it's something that's going to continue on, years, this has to happen more than one time. So you have to blame it on the cold weather just dipping so low, and it's Mother Nature.
Well, Phil, based on what you're telling us and also based on the pictures that we're seeing, it might get worse before it does get better. So are the officials handling the matter well equipped to handle it in case it does get worse?
Well, what's going to happen is they're calling for rain this weekend after the snow. So the problem you've got there is it's just going to make the snow that's on the ground heavier. Buildings and roofs will be able to withstand the weight of the snow in addition to the water that's going to be piled onto the snow. That's another major problem. So it's essentially these areas that are hit are immobilized. And just as they're trying to dig out and start moving, they're getting hit again and they're going to be immobilized again. So it's a very, very dangerous situation.
The VOA's Phil Alexiou, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Well, we'll take another break now on The World Today. When we come back, China is giving men a first-hand experience of what it's like to go through birth pains. Please stay with us.